Congratulations. You followed the rules. You got the degree. You found a job. You saved your money. You stayed safe. And somehow, you still feel behind. By 30, you expected to feel secure. Instead, you feel trapped. The bills keep rising. The prices keep rising. The stress keeps rising. But your bank account barely moves. And no one explains why. Because the truth is uncomfortable. Saving money does not make you rich. It makes banks rich. Every month, you deposit your time into an account that loses value while you sleep. Inflation quietly eats your purchasing power. Your salary grows slowly. Everything else grows faster. Food, rent, education, healthcare, freedom. The bank thanks you for your discipline. Then it takes your money and lends it to someone else at a much higher return. They use your capital to buy buildings, businesses, and assets. Assets you will eventually pay to use. You thought you were being responsible. But responsibility without understanding becomes obedience. And obedience is extremely profitable for the people above you. They told you to save. They told you to wait. They told you patience was a virtue. What they forgot to mention was that the game changed decades ago. The rules your parents followed no longer work the same way. Cash is not safety. Cash is delayed erosion. A slowly melting ice cube disguised as security. And the most dangerous part? You feel smart while it happens. You open your banking app and see a bigger number. But numbers are not wealth. Control is wealth. Ownership is wealth. Systems are wealth. The real question is not how much you saved. The real question is, why are you still trusting a system that rewards motion while teaching you to stand still? Here is the part most people never understand. Wealth is not a pile of money. Wealth is velocity. Money behaves like blood. If it keeps moving, it nourishes and grows. If it sits still, it slowly dies. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They do not worship cash. They deploy it. They turn money into employees, into machines, into businesses, into assets that continue working long after they stop. The average person does the opposite. They trade 5 days every week for a paycheck. Then they place that paycheck in an account and hope time will somehow transform it into freedom. But time alone does not create wealth. Position creates wealth. Ownership creates wealth. Leverage creates wealth. The rich are not always smarter. They're simply standing in a different part of the machine. One person sells hours. The other owns systems. One waits for permission. The other acquires control. One works harder every year. The other becomes more valuable while sleeping. That is the hidden mechanism. The system does not reward effort equally. It rewards structure. It rewards assets. It rewards those who understand where money actually flows. And money always flows toward ownership. Consider two people. The first saves every month and feels responsible. The second builds skills, acquires assets, and reinvests every surplus dollar. 10 years later, the first has a larger number on a screen. The second owns engines that produce income. One preserved currency. The other created leverage. That difference changes everything. This is why some people seem to accelerate while others remain exhausted. They stopped treating money as something to protect. They started treating it as something to position. The world is not divided between workers and dreamers. It is divided between people who trade time and people who build systems that no longer depend on their time. So the real question is not whether you work hard. Let's make this painfully simple. Meet Dave. Dave did everything society told him to do. He studied hard, got a stable job, avoided risk, saved 10% of every paycheck. And for 30 years, Dave felt responsible. He felt disciplined. He felt safe. By the time Dave turned 60, he had accumulated what looked like a respectable amount of money. On paper, he had succeeded. But something felt wrong. Dave was exhausted. His best years were gone. And the number he spent decades building no longer bought what he imagined. The house cost more. Healthcare cost more. Education cost more. Everything important moved further away. Dave had spent his life protecting currency, while others were acquiring ownership. While Dave was saving, another person was learning valuable skills, building businesses, buying assets, taking calculated risks, reinvesting every advantage. Dave traded time for money. The other person built systems that produced money without requiring constant labor. That is the difference. One preserved effort, the other multiplied leverage. And leverage always outruns labor. This is why many hardworking people feel like they are running on a treadmill. They are disciplined. They are responsible. They are doing everything they were told, but they are still moving backward. Not because they failed, because they were given incomplete instructions. The modern economy does not reward caution alone. It rewards ownership, adaptability, and strategic positioning. The painful truth is that being good with money is not enough. You must understand how the game actually works. Otherwise, you may spend decades climbing a ladder, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. And that realization usually arrives far too late. The real tragedy is not losing money. The real tragedy is losing time. So how you stop becoming another Dave? You stop treating safety as the ultimate goal. Because in a world that constantly changes, comfort can become a very sophisticated trap. The objective is not reckless risk. The objective is intelligent movement. First, invest in skills that increase your value. Skills compound faster than savings. Communication, sales, writing, technology, problem solving. These are assets no one can inflate away. Second, convert surplus income into ownership. Businesses, stocks, intellectual property, systems that continue producing value after the work is done. Third, think in decades, not paychecks. Every decision either increases your dependence or increases your leverage. That is the real divide. The middle class is often taught to seek security. The wealthy focus on control. Security depends on external conditions. Control comes from owning something that works for you. This does not happen overnight. It begins with a change in philosophy. You stop asking, how can I save more? And start asking, how can I build something that grows without me? That single question changes your entire trajectory. Because freedom is not created by storing money. Freedom is created by designing systems. And systems are built by people willing to think differently. You are not foolish for following the rules. You were simply playing a game whose true mechanics were never fully explained. Now you know. The choice is yours. You can return to the familiar path and hope discipline alone will be enough. Or you could begin building leverage, ownership, and control. So the real question is, will you spend your life protecting numbers on a screen or constructing engines that buy back your time? If this changed the way you see money, subscribe. I'm collecting donations in the form of a subscribe. If this changed how you see money, subscribe to Money Talks Money.